Hello all, C3 here. I know this has been my first video in, honestly, even a couple of years. You may be wondering where I've been or why I haven't made a video in so long, and I'll give a brief explanation as to why I haven't. I have tried to make videos, trust me. I have had several partial projects that just never got finished, and the reason for that is partially due to just a general lack of not really wanting to. And then the other half of the feeling was when I actually did want to make YouTube videos, I wasn't very satisfied with the format that I had. So, a lot of these half-finished projects just never got finished for that reason. So, hopefully I can change that with this new format where I do voiceovers instead of a live video. So this computer you're seeing in front of you here is a digital PC 5000. These blur marks that you're seeing here are just to cover up some identifying information. This is a Socket 7 era PC, has a non-Pentium chip in it, as you'll see eventually. It's got 384 megs of RAM. Looks like one of the expansion cards was removed at some point, and there on the motherboard you can see the S3 Verge graphics chip there. Got a nice view of the three 128 meg sticks as well as the CPU VRM module. But yeah, it just needs some cleanup, and that's what we'll be doing primarily today. So naturally the first thing I want to do is try turning this bad boy on. I have another digital PC. That one is a dual Pentium machine, and that thing's not working, in quite poor condition. Maybe that'll be another video. So obviously it powers up there, and you can see the AMD K6200 CPU detected in the thing. The hard drive wasn't in it, as you maybe saw in the pan over there. So obviously we're not booting into anything. So speaking of the hard drive, here's the caddy for the thing. Now this thing only came with one hard drive, and as you can see in the video here around the screw holes, you can see where the screws that were originally in there were biting into the metal and leaving marks. So that leads me to believe that there were two hard drives in this point, but it only came with one. So speaking of the hard drive, here it is. This is a Quantum 21608T, 2GB. And you'll see the labels on the upper side are half removed, and that's because I always take the top off of these drives nowadays to make sure that the platters are free and the heads are in the right position. Now I'll go ahead and play the sounds that this drive makes just after this clip ends, because I do like the sounds of it. And so we'll just get straight on to the disassembly of this thing. We'll start with removing the remaining PCI card, and once I actually get this thing out here, you'll be able to see that it is just a bone standard modem card. I have taken to starting to save these now, as opposed to just throwing them out like I used to. No real reason, but hey. And now we'll have a go at the power supply. Here you can see me removing the 20-pin power connector. As far as I'm aware, this is just a standard ATX power supply, so nothing special about it like the other DEC PC I have. And I also have to go ahead and remove the power cable for the floppy drive and the CD drive. Obviously the hard drive already wasn't plugged in this thing, so no hard drive cable to remove. With all those cables disconnected, I can get the spaghetti mess of wires up out of the way, and we can move around to the back to start unscrewing the thing. Obviously, standard ATX power supply is just 4 screws around the edges, and she'll hopefully be right out. Now, this power supply should have come out pretty easily, but due to some weird design choices by DEC, it wasn't exactly the easiest thing. I didn't realize it at the time, but that one screw that's sitting over to the left bottom edge of the power supply there, not only was supposed to be holding the power supply in place, but was also one of the mounts that the hard drive was supposed to be on, and I'll show you where that goes at the end of the video when I'm reassembling the thing. Now, I didn't realize it until quite a bit later, so, you know, the jamming at the side of the power supply was a little bit of desperation there. It took some weird kajiggering at a strange angle in order to be able to actually get the power supply out. So with the power supply removed, we'll move on to this weird little add-in card in the top rear of the chassis here. It's just got the one screw and it's got a cable leading back to the motherboard. And as you can see here, it is just a speaker output and a microphone in. It unplugs with the cable down on the daughter board there. So just like that, comes out pretty easily. And while removing cables, we might as well just go ahead and remove this CD audio cable. And that just has, you know, the usual one clip. And it also plugs into 4 exposed pins on the daughter board there as well. So with relative ease, that's up and out of the way. We'll also go ahead and remove the front panel audio and the front panel LED and power connectors, which also plug in on the daughter board, and the rear fan connector, which strangely plugs into the front. But anyway, we'll also go ahead and just remove that rear fan while we're at it. 2 clips and it tilts out. Pretty common fan assembly there. Now next we'll go ahead and tackle the CD-ROM drive. I thought this would have just been as easy as removing 2 screws and off to the races, but what I didn't realize before I actually got the CD drive out is that on the opposing side of this drive there's a rail, and that rail interferes with the CD drive and the front panel just enough that you can't really push it out without also taking out the front panel. So it does take me a little bit to realize that, but then eventually we go ahead and remove the front panel as well. So with the CD drive removed, you can see that as a TAC CD-ROM drive made in August 1997. Pretty good quality little thing, bit dusty on the top, and you can see the rail that I was talking about in the previous clip there. Standard IDE interface, nothing proprietary or weird there, and you can see the audio output on the left hand side and the standard Molex. Setting that aside, we're going to go ahead and move on to removing the floppy drive. Now the astute among you may notice that the front panel is actually not removed, and that's because I was incorrect. The CD drive actually came out with a little force, and it was the floppy drive that got hung up on the front panel despite not having any rails. So once I get the 2 screws removed from the floppy drive here, which are pretty similar to the CD-ROM drives, you'll be able to see the trouble that I had getting it out. And you'll see in my attempts to slide it out here, it gets stuck. I even try and pull it out from the front, but it is pretty jammed in place there for some reason. So what you'll see is that instead of just trying to yank the thing through the front panel, I go ahead and start removing the front panel. And you can see me undoing the first latch there, and the second latch is in a little bit of an inconvenient location. So once I tip the case up here, you'll see that there's that small one, but there's also a big one down behind that black shroud there. And it's quite impossible to reach with just your finger, so what I wound up having to do was get a screwdriver in there and use that instead, which you'll see me getting in there right now. And once I actually pry that guy loose, the front panel comes off with relative ease, and you can see that there. Quite dusty on the inside, as you might expect, but otherwise, yeah, just one whole assembly. Once that front panel is removed, getting the floppy drive actually removed is very simple. Now we'll go ahead and just get these cables out of here. Obviously, the hard drive cable is already removed, so right now we're just taking out the secondary IDE and the floppy cable. They weren't really attached to anything in terms of cable ties or anything, so just a matter of yanking them out of the daughter board and away they go. So now we'll go ahead and remove this front shroud. This is just like an air guide almost. There's no fan attached to it, and you can see there It's basically just a plastic funnel. We'll get that piece of plastic for the motherboard out of the way, and we'll go ahead and start removing this guy. This is a pretty common late deck thing, I think, where they had the motherboard affixed to a giant riser card like that, basically, and then it just sort of pulls out from the top. Now, obviously, this was kind of hard to do with one hand, so I kind of have to almost lever it out. But after some work, you can see that the motherboard just comes out. We'll just give a quick little overview of the board here. You can obviously see that the CPU and heatsink is on the left-hand side there. We'll go ahead and unplug the fan. And here you can see the Northbridge chip, which my phone does not like to focus on necessarily, and the text is quite hard to read. I forget what chipset this is off the top of my head. Now moving on to the graphics chip. This is a pretty common sort of thing to see on a lot of motherboards, not just DEC. You can see the Southbridge there, and this nice little digital branded chip. I don't really know what this controls, but hey, kind of cool to see a digital branded chip on a digital board. And down at the bottom here, you can obviously see the absolutely massive riser card interface. Clearly proprietary. There's obviously some sort of PCI going over this, but there's a lot more than that too. Anyway, so now we'll go ahead and get on to removing the daughter board from the system. This one is not as modular as the main board is. I guess they figured that the components on the actual board were going to fail a lot more than this. But in any case, it's just 5 screws arranged in a star pattern across the thing. And I'll just go ahead and cut through those really quick. And as you can see, once all 5 screws are removed, the thing comes out really easily. Here you can just get a quick view of the giant riser card interface, as well as some of the chips on this daughter board here. You've got a lot of the audio circuitry down here, as you can see with that crystal audio chip. We've got the IDE channels, which I think the logic for that is up on the main board, but anyway. With that all out of the way, the only thing that remains in the system, other than the front panel cables, is this micro switch for the case intrusion. It's held in by 2 screws, so all that needs to happen is remove those and it comes out with ease. So we'll go ahead and get the front plastic thing out, and the speaker is on there as well. They have that little weird sticker in front of the thing, and once you push that little bar back, the thing falls down. What I didn't realize is that I actually broke it, and you can see the broken plastic there. Oops. But the speaker is tied to the front panel connectors as well, strangely. So you have to remove those in order to actually get it out. As you can see there, it just comes off with a single plastic lever, but the actual switches need to be removed from the plastic housing in order to get the cable out. And so it takes a little doing, but I'm able to get the switch out, and then I have to push it down through the hole and put it back up through the other one. But that's not all, because in order to actually get the rest of the cable and speaker out, I have to remove the LEDs and the other switch. I thought at the time that I could just remove the cable in the end of the front panel audio PCB there, but it just would not come out under any circumstances. And so after all that was removed, I went ahead and dumped this in the bathtub and cleaned it off all nicely, and as you can see, here is the result. Nice and clean. And now that we're done cleaning the case, we can come back over to the rest of the components and we can remove the heatsink. And we can see the beautiful AMD K6 200 ALR sitting underneath. Now, I only noticed it after I started washing the thing, but you can see on the side there that it says AMD K6 200, so clearly that this is the original CPU that came with the system. And now obviously we have to clean some things off that aren't exactly ideal to just dump under the sink, so we'll get a wet paper towel and just wipe down the top of the power supply like so. And so with everything else already cleaned off, the only thing we have left to wash is the side panel and top panel of the thing. As you can see, the top is quite dirty, but the inside, including the descriptive sticker, are quite clean. And also, I noticed while I was washing the front piece there that holds the speaker, it had that weird little plastic insert, and I don't really know what that was doing except blocking airflow, so I just went ahead and got that thing out of there. And here's the front panel, all nice and cleaned off. Again, we're still blocking out that sensitive info. And this Energy Star sticker down here at the bottom is just disintegrating. You can see the scratch that I left with my finger there. And there was this weird residue down at the bottom that I really couldn't clean off, and you can see the globule there. So I think probably sometime down the road this is going to be a candidate for Goo Gone. But otherwise, this is looking pretty good. Okay, so we're going to be cutting the reassembly process together rapid fire style. You'll be able to see in the bottom left hand corner there that we got the front panel connectors and LEDs back in place. And we got the rear fan reinstalled as well. We got the plastic PCI card guide back in place there, as well as the micro switch. And we got the front cooling funnel reinstalled too. And you can see a lot of progress so far. Next we went ahead and put the lower daughter board back in there and secured its 5 screws in. Also put the floppy drive and CD-ROM drive in. Now before we get the motherboard back in, I went ahead and replaced the coin cell CR2032 there. You can see the old one. We also went ahead and reinstalled the CPU fan, which is all nice and clean now. Still a little bit dust, but get off my back. And I went ahead and recabled the floppy drive and CD-ROM drive as well, as you can see right there. And so now we got the motherboard put back in place, and you can see it slotted into that giant riser card there. This part was completely toolless, no screws required. And so now we got the power supply book put back in place and all of the cables plugged in. It was startlingly easy to put back in compared to how hard it was to take out, but in any case, we also got the PCR card put back in. So we got the hard drive put in place and cabled up. You can see that screw up in the top right hand corner was interfering with my duties. And now the only piece that we have left to put in is the rear audio. So with the rear audio reinstalled, that completes our rebuild of this system other than the side panels. And so here you can see just a brief overview of the now freshened up system. So now for the moment of truth. We already got the monitor and the keyboard and mouse plugged in, so the only thing we need to plug in now is the power cable. And here we go, first power on. And as we can see, LED is a little dim, but it is on. And you'll see that on the monitor in just a second. And it's posting and everything. Obviously we get the prompt that the system battery has died, but you'd expect that after you place the CMOS battery. And as you can see, after we press F1 to go by that, there is no hard disks detected. Oh no? Well, to further investigate the issue of no hard drive, I obviously had to get into the BIOS, so we went ahead and took a look at the fixed disk settings, and all it took is auto-detecting the disk, and everything was fine, so we went ahead and saved those changes and exited. You can see on this power-up that the Quantum Fireball hard drive was detected properly, and as we go ahead and start to boot up, it didn't boot up initially, which kind of threw me for a loop. I looked at the front of the case, and we can see that the floppy drive light is stuck on. Now, I thought that meant that the cable was plugged in the wrong way, but it passed post, so that couldn't have been the case. That was a little weird. So naturally I flipped the cable twice, and after that second boot up it just worked, and as you can see here it is now booting. And it is booting into Windows 98 with good disk activity and everything like that. So we're just going through the pre-boot AVG scanner. And obviously I'm not going to show the desktop because personal data, but yeah. So we're going to go ahead and reinstall the operating system. But before we do that, I figured I'd just install a small upgrade here. This is an ATI Rage 128GL. I'm not actually even sure if this is an upgrade to the graphics chip that's on board, but I just had this card laying around, so I figured why not. It's much easier to find drivers for as well compared to the internal videos. So obviously this is just as simple as putting it in the slot and pushing it down, and once that's done, putting the screw in. So yeah. Okay, and so after the install is complete, we're just going to go ahead and plug the thing back in, power it on, test, and make sure the new graphics card and the rest of the system are still working fine. As you can see on the screen here, that is the case. Screen comes up, no artifacts or anything like that. So now that we've confirmed everything is working as it should be, we can go ahead and start installing Windows 98. So we're going to skip all the Windows 98 install stuff. I'm sure you guys have seen that 100 times. It's pretty standard fare. The only thing I wanted to show here was that the hard disk formatted with no bad sectors, which is very nice. So yeah, we'll jump right into the first boot up. Okay, so here we are booting up into Windows 98 the first time. Really, this is just a continuation of the setup, and it's really only about halfway done, but really the only things I'm going to plan on doing once this installation is complete is installing the zip disk drivers, and also the universal USB drivers, and the Service Pack 4 for Windows 98, I think it was. So I'll probably do more with the software at some point, but mostly this was just a hardware video, and this is just upkeep, really. Okay, on the desktop, it actually took me a couple tries to get the right drivers for this thing, but you can see the correct setup program on the desktop there. It's actually kind of funny because the universal USB drivers that I was installing here I thought were too big to fit on a floppy disk. So I was installing the zip disk drivers first, but as it turns out the universal USB installer is only 900 kilobytes, so once those zip disk drivers were installed, it was a pretty quick matter of just dragging the universal USB installer off of there and then installing the thing. There were some issues actually getting the disk drivers installed for the USB drives, but not too bad in the grand scheme of things. So I didn't show the actual install process for the Windows 98 unofficial service pack, but as you can see there, it makes it identify as Windows ME, so it's a lot of those same files. While the camera was off, I also installed a few fairly basic applications, such as FileZilla, as you just saw there. Bringing up Word 2000 now at this point, which would have been probably a pretty common thing seen on Windows 98 installs. And I believe even that the original Windows 98 install had that on there, but as you can see now, it's registered to me as opposed to the previous owner. So I also installed Type VNC, as you can see there, so if I wanted to access this computer remotely for whatever reason, I can do that. And we've got 7-zip installed as well. So while I go through the removable drives and just show that I've got both the zip disk and the USB drive installed there, I just want to wrap this video up. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll probably be making these videos a bit more regularly compared to my, previous upload schedule of not uploading for like 2 years. I can't guarantee that all these videos are going to be the exact same quality, but yeah, hopefully they should be a little bit more interesting. I'll probably, as I get more computers, do a lot more of these tear them down, clean them out type things, so look forward to that. And yeah, I'll probably do a follow-up to this video at some point. I know I kind of am cutting it off abruptly here. I didn't really do too much on the operating system side, especially in terms of like benchmarking the system or anything like that. So, I mean, if you guys are interested in something like that, please leave a comment below, and I'll see about doing that kind of video. So yeah, for now, just be on the lookout for more videos, and thanks for watching, people.